Welcome to Let's Address This with Qasim Rashid. And as you guys know, these last few weeks, I've been focusing heavy on platforming good people doing good stuff. And in particular, people who are trying to save our democracy from fascists and from corporate Democrats who refuse to recognize the urgency of the hour. And today is one such brilliant leader that I've gotten to follow for quite some time and excited to speak to him for the first time. Chuck Park is running for Congress in Queens, New York's 6th district. Chuck, thanks for joining us today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I think you hit the nail on the head, man. This is a crazy moment. These are not normal times. We have American citizens being shot dead in the streets, and here in Queens, man, we have families. We got working moms walking their kids to school. We got dads coming off, a shift in the back of a restaurant, getting disappeared. Still,
Yeah,
Minneapolis may have quieted down, but so it's still crazy times. And it's so important that we find each other, whether you're in New York City or Minneapolis or LA or Chicago or wherever you are, because this is a movement to fight back against ICE, to fight back against the oligarchs and corporate Democrats. And we're in this movement together. So I'm so happy to be on the show.
definitely, man. And you're doing the hard part. I'm doing the easy part of just asking you the tough questions, but you're doing the hard part out and about. I can't go a day without getting calls from or text from somebody saying, "Hey, so and so got scooped up. What can we do, and how do we help them?" So let's kind of start there. But actually, let me step back. I want you to introduce yourself to our audience. I'm going to put your link in the chat. But what is your superhero origin story? What made you decide that this system is not working? I need to run for office, and I'm going to run for Congress. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm just a normal ass dude from Queens. I'm a Korean kid. I'm the child of immigrants. My parents came in the 80s, and their first job when they landed in Woodside, Queens was street peddling. They
Mm,
sold jackets and jeans 12, 13 hours a day, grinded it out. And guess what? They believed in this promise that you come to this country, you work your ass off, and in return, this country will give you a home and a future. And it did. They had 5 kids. I grew up to become a U.S. diplomat under President Obama. Um, my story is probably the same as your story, Kasim. Maybe tiny details are different, but that's the same story I bet as so many people tuned in right now. You come here, whether it's you, your parents, your grandparents, they work their asses off. And in return, they have a home and a future. And that story, that promise is what's being destroyed every single day. First of all, by ICE. I mean, every mom, dad, kid they grab is a story destroyed. But it's not just that. It's also under attack by this system. And we're working harder and harder than ever. You got nurses running double shifts. You have school teachers putting in extra hours buying school supplies. You got cashiers, people just killing themselves trying to pay the bills. And this country and our government isn't keeping up their side of the bargain. We're working hard, but that home and that promise is dying. It's being starved. And I think my theory is it's being starved because those same politicians stopped working for us and started working for the corporate PACs. They started
And
working for
yeah,
big.
and we're already getting questions in the chat about that. Let's talk about your fundraising. How are you fundraising? Who are you taking money from? People are already asking, are you taking money from APAC?
No, no. So zero APAC money, zero corporate PAC money, zero lobbyist PAC money. I'm taking money from real ass people, human beings, individual contributions only. And that's really important. It's really important because look, we see what's happening, for example, with I'm going to change topic a little bit, the military buildup off the coast of Iran. Right
Yeah.
now, we got aircraft carrier strike group. We got, I don't know how many destroyers repositioned there. We have Patriot missiles, THAAD missile defense systems. We got dozens of fighter jets ready to do something. And whether or not Trump sparks potentially reignites an ancient war between long-standing historic enemies in that region, or even if he sits and does nothing, guess who's getting paid? Raytheon,
Yep.
Lockheed Martin,
Defense
Boeing.
contractor.
Even if
Yeah.
we just sit there and just move those weapons around, move those battleships around, they're getting bank. Just look at the stock price over the last year. And what they do is they take their record profits from warmongering, then they pump it back into political campaigns in the form of
Mhm.
PAC nations. They have
Yep.
super PACs as well. And then they prop up politicians. And this isn't just Republicans, it's Democrats, including my opponent. And they keep these people in office and they keep this cycle going where nobody wants war. No one wants this death and destruction. No one's billions of our resources being spent over there. But these politicians know who butters their bread.
Yep.
And so they will vote for this or they'll close their eyes to it and let it happen.
And let's talk about your opponent for a minute because the conventional wisdom says, "Hey, we're dealing with a fascist in the White House. He's continuing to fund a genocide in Gaza. He is pardoning all of his corrupt buddies with presidential pardons, with taking $1 million bribe, as reported by the Wall Street Journal. Why not run against a Republican? Why run against a Democrat? Surely a Democrat is at least better than a Republican, right?"
So I think that's exactly wrong. Like, not all Democrats are the same. Um, and in fact, it's not enough to be Democrat when you see what Democrats have done. I'll give you, for example, my opponent. What does it mean to be a Democrat representing Queens? This is the beating heart of immigrant America, the
Yep.
most diverse community in the world. What does it mean to represent immigrant Queens if, like my opponent, you're signing on to a resolution thanking ICE?
Mm.
And this is a Democrat who signed on to this June 2025 resolution expressing gratitude to ICE for protecting the homeland. So, what does it mean to be a Democrat? I mean, apparently, it doesn't mean you're standing up for immigrants. It doesn't mean you're standing against ICE.
Yep.
That same Democrat that I'm running against voted to approve the most recent appropriations bill for the Pentagon, giving them $1 trillion war machine. And we see what Trump's doing with that. He's
Even
not only
after they failed their eighth audit, she had no problem signing on to that.
exactly right. And we see how she's approving, as a Democrat, bill after bill that will send billions overseas to bomb kids in Gaza.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, when it's time to ask for billions to buy free school lunches across the country, billions to fund universal childcare, a national scheme of universal childcare
Yep.
in this country. Oh, we don't have the money. And so these are Democrats. It's not just Republicans. These are Democrats, corporate Democrats, establishment Democrats, whatever you want to call them, who are fighting against the interests of working people in this country. And so that's why it's really important to give people a real choice. And that choice isn't always in November for the general election. That choice is in the primary. In New York, it's going to be in June 23rd. But there's a primary election, and that's where you really have to show your values.
You've you and I were talking offline, and I didn't realize this, but your opponent not only refused to endorse Zoran Mamdani in the primary for New York's mayoral election, even after he won the primary, she refused to endorse him. And even when it was explicitly clear that he was going to win, you know, I will never defend Hakeem Jeffries for his terrible leadership in this space. But at least he, at the very last second, said, "Yeah, fine, I'll endorse Zoran Mamdani." Chuck Schumer didn't. Your opponent didn't, and it just to me just speaks to the rot within the corporate wing of the Democratic Party. Because Zoran was running against billionaires, she decided that she was for billionaires. Now, we can spend the whole interview bashing her, and I think there's a lot about her that's deeply problematic, but I know people are going to want to know more about where are you on the issues. So something like healthcare. Where are you on healthcare? How do we fix the healthcare crisis in this country right now?
Yeah, so let me answer that question first, and I'll go back to Dorothy Mamdani.
Yeah.
Healthcare, I think we're way overdue to have Medicare for all, single payer, universal healthcare. Every other developed country of the world has it. South Korea has it, Canada has it, France has it, and it works so well. It's cheaper systematically, and it gets rid of all that bullshit of premiums, copays, deductibles, all those bills that keep going up for us, like
Yeah.
gone overnight. And we can have that right now. Like Congress is in session, they could vote on that right now, and we would have universal health,
Yep.
and that would improve the
What a
lives
what a
of hundreds
concept.
of millions of people, right? And it's not a question of whether we could do it. We could do it because we see every other country in the world doing it. It's a question of political will and what is stopping our leaders from doing it. And it's the simple fact that they're bought.
Right.
Google the donor list, look up your local elected official. And again, this is Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah.
Look, my opponent, Grace Meng, on her donor list, Pfizer, Bristol Myers Squibb. So she's not going to fight to bring prescription drug prices down. Also on the donor list, the American Hospital Association. So she's not going to go up against the hospital corporations, insurance companies. These people are bought, and it's so plain to see. And so it's no surprise when they don't take action, when they don't fight hard for Medicare for all. Going back to Mom Donnie,
Yeah.
um, I mean, Hakeem Jeffries ultimately did endorse. My opponent did not. And it is the same exact thing. She did not endorse because she doesn't want to piss off the donors that keep her in power, election cycle after election cycle. And that's not just the corporate donors and the billionaires, it's also APAC,
Yep.
which takes tons of money from APAC. And, when you have a guy like Mayor Mamdani who's saying, look, I don't know why every single New York City official who's supposed to be dealing with public safety and cleaning the streets and local schools has to take a pilgrimage to Israel as the first thing they do. That was so threatening to AIPAC and so threatening to people like Grace Meng that they couldn't endorse her. And again, this was a man who was the Democratic nominee who won an overwhelming primary victory. And still, even then, establishment Democrats couldn't come around to endorse him.
I
Disgusting.
I
I think it
remember watching
reveals
the
what
debate.
what their motives are, and who they're working for. They're not working for the people of New
Yeah.
York City or normal people.
Yeah, I've long said whoever a candidate is funded by when they're running for office is who they're responsible to when they're in office. If they're funded by APAC and United Health and Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, that's who they're going to respond to when they call. It's just fundamentally what it comes down to. And if you're funded by the people, then you're going to respond when the people call because if you don't, they're going to vote you out. And it's literally that clear. This is the one thing that actually really fascinates me about our country right now as divided as we are as a nation, as much as we feel like there's a left versus right divide, there is overwhelming, like over 90% of Americans say, get corporate money out of politics, get APAC out of politics. You could be the most right wing MAGA or the most left wing, bleeding heart liberal. And everyone is like, yeah, we need to get corporate money out of politics. And I think it speaks to this broader point that it really isn't left versus right. In my book, it really is top versus bottom. It's these billionaire oligarchs trying to take down and keep us fighting against each other so we don't stand together against them.
That's exactly what it is, and the most visceral demonstration of that is the freaking Epstein files. Just
Yes.
look, you got these rich, wealthy, ultra powerful men, and what angers me most is that Democrats aren't calling out their own creeps. Republicans aren't calling out their own creeps either, but Democrats aren't calling out their creeps. We got Donald Trump in there a million times, but guess what? Bill Clinton is in those files a million ass times. We've got we've got Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, but guess what? Larry Summers, Obama's chief economic advisor, is in there. Um, all of these assholes are in there. Bill Gates is in there. Progressive
Yeah.
philanthropist. Elon Musk is in there. Noam Chomsky. Every single one of these guys should be dragged out for a hearing, and they should be prosecuted. We have to prosecute the pedophiles. I think that is non-controversial.
It's a low bar. It's a very
What's that?
low bar to achieve.
Yeah, but somehow we can't get there, you know? And I think that is the scariest thing for me. If in 6 months from now, all that will have happened from what we have seen in these files is some salacious headlines, and that no one has actually gone to jail for the stuff that is documented that we are seeing written down in emails,
Yeah.
then that will be the true sign that the oligarchs are in control. If there are no consequences. What's crazy is Prince Andrew, you probably saw the news, he was just
Yep.
arrested.
Exactly.
So, like, other countries are holding their people accountable. Why aren't we?
Yep.
And it just speaks to the rot, as you mentioned earlier, how deep of a hole we're in where people way up there are controlling everything. And they can be exposed for doing the worst things, and we still have to struggle to get basic accountability.
Yeah.
All of us should be screaming about prosecuting the pedophiles. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton or Donald Trump.
I agree, and I mean, I think this is where when you juxtapose that to the fact that 60% of Americans can't make ends meet, yet we're spending billions on protecting convicted pedophiles, actual child sex. I mean, going back to ICE for a second, people forget that under the previous Trump regime, there were more than 5,000 documented cases of child sexual abuse, migrant sexual abuse by ICE and DHS, and Biden and Harris did nothing to prosecute them. They increased ICE funding, and so look, I just want to emphasize that you can be a Democrat and call out Democrats. We're not in a cult. It's not anti party to call out Biden and Harris for failing to prosecute these ICE fascists. It's, in fact, necessary to ensure that the next time we have a chance to elect a president, which hopefully we will, given this presidency, I don't know what's going to happen, that we vet them and push them. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Chuck Park, running for Congress in New York's 6th congressional district, a career diplomat, and someone who left due to his opposition to the Trump regime's just horrific policies. Real quickly, Chuck, can you share a bit about just your overall campaign structure? What have you guys been able to accomplish so far? People are asking about your path to victory or viability. Talk a bit about that.
Yeah, totally. So I can't see all the questions. Thank you for bringing that up. So I'm running in Queens, New York City. This is an incredibly diverse district. In terms of my campaign timeline so far, man, I was just so pissed off at what was happening, specifically with ICE in New York City. You guys have probably seen the videos, but ICE raids in on Canal Street, ICE raids in corners of immigrant working class Queens, disappearing moms, dads, kids from our streets, people just trying to make a living and build a future for their families. It pissed me off, made me anxious. I reached out to the office of my opponent because I knew everyone was feeling scared, everyone was anxious, everyone was ready to march. I reached out saying, "What can we do? Can we organize a rally? We're ready for it. Please lead us. You know, channel our energy. We're going to show up for you. So just name the date and we're there." And that office's response was, "Hey, fill out a form. You know, we'll get back to you when we get back to you." And that showed me how badly the establishment is failing us. Like they don't see the urgency of this. They don't feel it personally as so many of us do in terms of this direct assault on our communities and our families. And so I was pissed off. I talked to my wife about it, and I literally pulled up my phone, went to the FEC website, and I filled out the form to become a candidate for Congress. I was like, let
Amazing.
me channel all this negativity, this anxiety, this anger into something constructive and positive. Filed the form in early November. I got some buddies to make me an announcement video, and we launched November 17th. And since then, it's been incredible to see that it is true. There are so many of us that feel the exact same way about the state of our country right now, and so many of us that are ready to act. And we saw it after, in particular, the shooting of Renee Good. We saw it after the murder of Alex Preddy. That, for better or worse, all of us who feel this way, the millions of us in this country that are so pissed off
Hmm.
and so ready to defend each other, that we have to drag our leaders out to do the right thing. And we're ready to do it. We're ready to march, hit the streets, and we're gonna call, email Chuck Schumer and every one of our representatives in Congress a million times to get them to vote no on that extra money for DHS and ICE.
Yeah, we
And
need
that
them to
fight is
stand
still
firm.
ongoing right now.
We need to stand firm. So keep building on that. So you launched a campaign. You're off to a good start. I first became aware of your campaign actually through social media, and was compelled and was paying attention. And then when I found out you're running against Grace Meng, I'm like, this is a guy we need to support because of all the reasons. But she's terrible. And but how how many volunteers do you guys have? What's your path to victory? When is election day? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. So just in terms of nuts and bolts, in a few months we've recruited about 200 volunteers.
Amazing.
And I have to thank, honestly, I have a lot of thanks for uh, Zoran Mamdani. He unleashed a volunteer army, and that army is much of it's still standing. Some of those brigades and platoons of volunteers ready to knock on doors, and so a lot of them have showed up for me. So hundreds of volunteers have signed up. Uh, Fundraising, I'll be super transparent. I will always be beat on the money by my opponent because of the kinds of
Yeah.
money that she will accept. Right, blood
Yeah.
money, corporate money. And so, all that said, I've raised about $200,000 from real, normal human beings, and that
Amazing.
includes, it's crazy to see $5 from a Costco cashier in Sarasota, Florida, $2 from a nurse in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm in Queens, far away from these folks, but what that shows me is, again, there is something happening. There's a movement of people who are ready for something different, and we'll show up for each other, even across space and time. We'll show up for each other in these small ways. So that's my fundraising. That's my volunteer base.
And then
Um,
when is the primary election in New York?
Primary election in New York is June 23rd. So
Oh,
for
so
my
you got
Queens
some
people, for
time.
my New
Yeah.
Yorkers on this call, June 23rd, tell your friends, tell your family, show up and vote for Chuck Park. Um, and between then and now, it's going to be a ground assault. I'm going to be knocking on doors with a volunteer army, trying to reach each and every single voter for that primary. And my opponent, just like most establishment Dems, just like Andrew Cuomo in his campaign, she's going to try this death from above, just buying ads,
Yep.
dumping mailers on people, and trying to hide from her record, which is a pro ICE, pro genocide record. And so I have to fight back against that.
The other questions in the comments are what institutional support have you picked up? Working Families Party, Justice Democrats, Sunrise Movement, any gun safety organizations. Talk a bit about that as well. Of what kind of coalition has your campaign built so far?
Yeah. So I was just I just announced one really important endorsement, which was the 504 Democratic Club of New York. This is the largest and oldest advocacy group for the rights of people with disabilities. And if I could take a second, just talk about that community, that is the biggest minority in this country
Yes.
and in New York City. And it is a civil rights crusade that they are on. You know, the Americans with Disability Act was an issue of civil rights. You know, basic access and basic equal treatment under the law, because forever before that, people with disabilities were segregated. They were given separate but equal facilities. And unfortunately, to this day, that is still the case. You know, I don't know if you've been on a subway lately in New York City, but the elevators are broken 90% of the time. Um, Automatic doors don't work. And so there's still this fight. So I was really proud to earn the endorsement of the 504 Democratic Club. I've earned the endorsement from Track APAC because I will not take that blood money. And I absolutely am in the process of working to earn the support of the Working Families Party and the coalition of their affiliates, because I think this is, as you said earlier, this isn't a question of left, right. It's fighting the oligarchs up here. It's all of us against the oligarchs. And I truly believe that an undocumented immigrant in Queens, New York City has a whole lot in common with an unemployed auto worker in Dearborn, Michigan, and has a whole lot of the same interests as a coal miner in West Virginia. We all want a life of basic dignity for ourselves, and we want to build a future for our families. We need healthcare and childcare, and we need a pathway to citizenship.
Yeah, I mean, look, Chuck, I love this. It's music to my ears. I'm excited. I've been putting your link in the comments, and the comments are fantastic. People are, Donna says, "Love your words." Francis says, "Good." People are saying, "Yay." People are saying, "I'm looking forward to seeing you." I mean,
So
the
find me,
momentum
come
is
to
there.
Queens, find me. I'm everywhere. I'm on these streets.
Yeah, people are asking me to get you on other platforms as well because clearly there's a lot of support for you here. We're down to our final couple of minutes here, and I wanted to make sure I give you time to kind of speak about what are some of the pressure points in your campaign where people can get involved and provide meaningful alleviation to elevate the work you're doing to make sure we cross finish line with a win in the primary.
Yeah, so we got to win this. I'm confident we're going to win it. June 23rd is the primary in New York. Um, but I could use support. You know, it's not about, and it's not even about electing me or one person. It's about across the country sending a message that there are better Democrats. There are Democrats that get it, that will fight for working families, that will abolish ICE, that will prosecute the pedophiles, that are anti-genocide. You know, we need to make a clear, honest statement to people that we're fighting for them, and have, you know, this has to be a moral stance that is laser focused. How can people support me? One, if you're in Queens, show up to my next event. Volunteer, help me knock on doors. I need this volunteer army, and I need this grassroots campaign on the ground in real life to win this thing. So if you're nearby, you can show up and sign up for a canvassing ship. Go to my website. I have mobilized. I'm on all those. My full launch will be in March, so I could use your support there. If you're further out, look, follow me on my social media. I don't have a huge Substack. Find me on Instagram, Chuck4Queens. And if you're able to, $5, $10, whatever you can afford really does help power our campaign. If you can give us 25 bucks, and guess what? You just pay for pizza for my volunteers. If you can, you know, throw in 200 bucks, you just help me print a whole new round of lit and flyers to give out on the doors. And so every dollar counts. You throw me $2, man, that's super helpful. And again, it sends a message. Even a tiny donation sends a message that there are more of us. There are many more of us than there are them up there. So, those are some quick ways to help, and just follow me, man.
Well said, man. We'll plug all your links and everything. I'm going to put it back in here for folks to donate. And I just want to double down on this point Chuck made, guys. It's not enough to simply call out the corruption in politics, to call out the money in politics. We got to show up, and you can show up with your time by phone banking, volunteering. I'm sure Chuck will agree with me that whether you're in New York or in California or in Florida or in Texas or in Illinois, where I am, you can phone bank and help Chuck out anyway remotely. And if you have a few bucks, throw it his way because it goes a long way. And the last thing I want to point out, and Chuck, then I'll leave it to you to close out the conversation. The primary is the election here. This is not a purple district or a red district, or we're trying to flip it. No, this is a deep blue district. You could have a literal doll or like an action figure on the Democratic ticket, and it would win over the Republican because it's such a blue district. And the point of that is that this primary is the election. This is not about waiting till November. It's about making a difference now. And so you need to get out there and be involved and be engaged. Um, I've run for Congress before. I know how much of a sacrifice it is, personally, financially, emotionally. And so, Chuck, I commend you for taking these steps. All the best to you. You always have a platform here. I'll leave it to you to close out the conversation.
Look, I just want to thank you, Kasim. I want to thank every single person tuned in right now because, again, this is a movement we're building. And I want to echo that one point as my closing point. November isn't the fight. The fight is the primary. And in New York, in my election, that primary is June 23rd. This is the fight. This is where we show people where we stand, again, on things like abolishing ICE, on being anti genocide, and on fighting the oligarchs and prosecuting the pedophiles. Man, I'm going to add that to my platform. We got to prosecute those damn people in the Epstein files. Um, that fight is the primaries. So please show up if you can, whether it's virtually, phone bank it for me, be incredible. Show up in the real world, throw me $1, $2, and let's win this.
Chuck Park running for Congress in New York 6th Congressional District. You're listening to Let's Address This with Qasim Rashid. Stay tuned for next week. Make sure you hit the subscribe button as we bring in our next guest. Peace out, everybody.
Peace. Thanks a lot.